Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 4:02 in the Pacific Time Zone. Time for Toker Talk Radio, where we let what's left of my hair down and turn the talking over to you, the people. Phone number is 971-533-7111. If you got comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, or little rants, this is the place to get them aired. Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for being here with us. Want to give huge thanks to Michael Freelander from Indica Vaporizers, who handled that interview like a champ. He had no idea I was calling him. The PR people from Indica got in touch with me, and they sent me an email saying, hey, would you like to talk to Michael from the Champs floor? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. It's like, let's get him on today, the beginning of the show. Maybe we can drive some more people out to the show. And just like an hour before showtime, I got the note from the PR guy that says, well, I haven't been able to get in touch with Michael, but here's his phone number. You're welcome to call him if you want. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So yeah, he answered the phone there at Champs, having no idea he was going to be on the radio. So good job, Michael Freelander. I also have to apologize to the listeners of Toker Talk Radio for missing yesterday's show, because it turns out I didn't need to. Yeah, so originally I was going to be missing Mondays and Wednesdays, because the Measure 91 Implementation Committee meets in Salem, which is an hour's drive away. And so I was going to take off the 4 o'clock hour so we get on the roads, we get down there for that meeting that it's supposed to start at the, was it 6 or 5? I think it starts like at 5, yeah. These meetings that are supposed to be starting at 5 o'clock, right? And so turns out they didn't meet yesterday. The Joint Committee did not meet yesterday. They're not going to meet until tomorrow. But even then I said, well, I'm still going to take Toker Talk Radio off, because at 7 o'clock, there's the first Oregon Liquor Control Commission listening session on Measure 91 implementation. And I'll just go to that. I'll have the extra time to be able to put together some documents and, some flyers for people and stuff. Well, I didn't get to go to that either. I was waiting for my friend Randy to come in from Minnesota. He was going to rent the car for us to head on down. And because of all the flight cancellations out of O'Hare and all the Midwestern airports, he didn't make it into town in time. So I could have done a show. Sorry. That's kind of a bummer. But that means you get a show today, and you also will probably get a show tomorrow. There is a Measure 91 implementation meeting going on, but I don't think I'll be able to make it to Salem for that one either. So that new schedule for Toker Talk Radio won't take place until next week, once we get Randy all settled in and the Portland Normal Board up and running and all that good stuff. So there you go. Thanks for putting up with the disruptions. Like I said, coming up after this next break, I've got a story. God, another one of these sad stories of innocent people being killed by the police they expected to be helping them. Tragic tale coming out of Decatur, Georgia. We'll tell you about that after the break. Before we go to break, though, I wanted to just briefly mention, again, this is an off the warpath story, has nothing to do with the war on drugs, except for maybe a tiny little thread. And that thread would be zero tolerance. You've heard of that concept, zero tolerance, right? We have zero tolerance for guns at school. We have zero tolerance for drugs at school. And you know what happens with these zero tolerance rules, right? They end up going from the ridiculous to the sublime. The zero tolerance for no guns at school ends up getting some kindergartner suspended because he points his fingers like a gun. And, but the zero tolerance, we got to, put him in detention. The zero tolerance for no drugs at school ends up getting, a teenage girl busted because she brought an aspirin to school or something like that, right? They end up being ridiculous. Well, here's the next ridiculous story. A 9-year-old boy's love of The Lord of the Rings has gotten him in trouble because the boy at Kermit Elementary School in Kermit, Texas, had a ring and tried to make his classmate disappear using his magic ring. Now, of course, it did not work. There is no such thing as magic. But administrators considered it a terroristic threat and said they had no choice but to take action, suspending the kid. Now, he's gotten in trouble a couple times before. He got in trouble once for referring to the color of another student's skin. Not necessarily was that offensive, we have no idea, but referred to it. And once again for bringing a book that featured a pregnant woman to school. There's a 9-year-old we're talking about. But zero tolerance for terroristic threats includes threatening to make your classmates invisible using a magic ring from a J.R.R. Tolkien book. That's how ridiculous zero tolerance is in this country. It's this kind of intolerant thinking that's got to be ended.
Elitist. Just like any other dishwashing, burger flipping, public school educated, self-employed, bar band, musician, National Guardsman, he's Radical Russ.
Also coming up on the show, we've got our daily Toker tunes for Electric Tuesday. Electric Bob will be calling in, and I'm sure he's got something in the pipeline. I haven't even looked yet to see what we're playing today, but be some good electronic music for you on this Tuesday. Looks like we got a couple in there. Not sure which one to play. Well, we'll figure it out. You can get 420 Radio on the go with our Shoutcast stream for all internet-enabled media players. Go to rad-r.us/420shout or just click the Shoutcast icon below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay, read the Weed Blog today.
Funky Roller Ring.
Oh yeah.
What's happening, Groovy Cats? This is your Funk Master of Ceremonies, Big Daddy, and I want you to join me every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here at the Funky Roller Ring.
Oh yeah.
Your home of soul, funk, and disco, baby.
Funky-licious.
There's always a party at the Funky Roller Ring.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is an entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. Radical Russ has been prepping for this debate full-time since 2005. The Russ Belville Show.
The truth is that every reaper is loaded with immorality and bestial perversion.
A propaganda war against marijuana is underway.
This is marijuana.
Welcome back, everyone.
Marijuana.
10 and a half after the hour, and I want to tell you this tragic story. I'm picking this up off the Free Thought Project. It was posted yesterday. And a story coming out of Decatur, Georgia, about the killing of Kevin Davis, age 44, on December 29th. Now, according to the reports here, and need it be mentioned that Kevin Davis, age 44, is an African-American man? Probably not. Once you hear the story, you would have picked that out anyway, but let's just get that out of the way to start. African-American man in Georgia killed when he called 911 for help. I guess Flava Flav was right. 911 is a joke. Kevin Davis was living with his girlfriend. Her name was April Edwards. So Davis and Edwards have a small apartment, and one of Davis's co-workers is a man by the name of Terrence Hilliard. Hilliard was going through a rough time, and so Davis said, why don't you crash at my place? Me and my girlfriend's place. So trying to do his friend a favor. Now on the 29th, there was an argument between his girlfriend and his co-worker. Okay, between Hilliard and Edwards. Hilliard stabbed Edwards with a kitchen knife in this argument. So the co-worker stabs the girlfriend with a kitchen knife and runs away. Davis, being a law-abiding citizen, calls 911. Davis and Edwards wait in their bedroom for help to arrive. Now remember, the girlfriend is suffering a stab wound at this point. Bleeding, probably. Now, shortly after he makes this 911 call, Davis hears a gun go off in his front room. Now he figures, oh shit, Hilliard's come back with a gun. This crazy guy that just stabbed my girlfriend came back with a gun. So he grabs his gun, that is Davis, grabs his own gun, and runs to the front room where he hears the shots. Unfortunately, the shots weren't coming from Hilliard. They were coming from police officer Joseph Pitts, who was the first to arrive on the scene. And of course, when he arrived on the scene, he had to do the standard operating procedure of shooting the dog. Davis and Edwards had a dog at their apartment. Dog's name was Toker. Dog was a three-legged dog. Cop bursts into the apartment. First thing he does is shoots a three-legged dog. Now, three witnesses all claim that Officer Joseph Pitts never announced his presence or identified himself as a policeman. Now, having just shot the three-legged dog, Davis comes into the room with his gun, fearing that Hilliard has just come back with a gun. And Officer Pitts sees a black man with a gun and shoots him twice, killing him. Now, according to the police, they say that Officer Pitts ordered Davis to drop his weapon, and Davis did not comply. The neighbors, however, report that they did not hear the officer to tell Davis to drop his gun until after they heard gunshots, multiple. The family's lawyer says, quote, "We have witnesses that will testify that they heard police yell, 'Drop the gun,' only after the shots were fired," end quote. Now, Davis was arrested, charged with aggravated assault of a police officer, and transferred to a hospital in police custody where he would die 2 days later. So a guy calls 911 because a house guest stabs his girlfriend, and the first thing the cops do when they show up is shoot the dog and shoot the man who called 911. To add insult to injury, the family is reporting that they were not allowed to visit him. According to the story, Kevin Davis's family members, quote, called, went to the hospital. They tried everything in their power to see him so he wouldn't die alone, so they could whisper something in his ear that would give him strength to keep fighting, end quote, according to the family lawyer. Now, Edwards, the girlfriend, was transported to emergency care. She had a puncture wound in her right arm that punctured an artery, but she has since recovered. They are now having candlelight vigils. There was a candlelight vigil Thursday. Atlanta Progressive News reports that 75 people showed up for the vigil. A local organizer, Shakia Penix, said, quote, black people have to now be cautious calling the police when we need help, end quote. Co-workers of Davis from the sandwich shop where he worked set up a memorial. They said, quote, Kevin was the best person to work up front. He was so friendly and so loving, he kept the customers coming in. Here at Sawicki's, the sandwich shop, we are all about farm-to-table food, health, and being a positive force in the neighborhood. Kevin was all about that. I so miss his presence. Another employee, Jeremiah Sains, says, quote, working with Kevin was a blessing. He watched my back when I was going through a rough spell, end quote. The police are currently investigating themselves and will hand the case over to the district attorney's office after they likely find that they did nothing wrong. You know, there are a lot of people, when we start talking about these protests in Ferguson and the Black Lives Matter movement and hands up, don't shoot, and I can't breathe, and all of these slogans that we've seen going across, there are a lot of people who will respond to this by decrying the amount of black on black crime there is. Oh, there's so much black on black crime. Well, of course there is. If you're a criminal, regardless of color, and you know one set of victims is going to get police protection, one set of victims is going to get immediate response and be treated with respect and investigated when crimes happen to them. And then there's another set of victims who the police will, if they don't ignore, will actively pursue as being criminals themselves. Why wouldn't you, as a criminal, go after the lesser protected group? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy is what I'm telling you here. And reading through the comments, and this is, I'll give you the link here in the chat room if you want to comment or, you know, learn more about this case, if I can spell correctly here. One of the comments here, never call the cops. This always happens. If you want to call someone, call the firefighters or handle it yourself. Exactly, responds someone else. Dial 911 and demand firefighter or medics. Ultimately point out, no cops. So much about this. And of course, the idea that the police should be investigating themselves in these cases. Of course they're going to find that they did everything by the book. They wrote the book. Their book tells them that it's okay to shoot the dog first thing when you go into a situation. Their book tells them that it's okay to shoot the citizens that you meet and ask questions later. And their standard operating procedures and their culture of silence behind the thin blue line gives them all the indication they need, all of the incentive they need to act in a lawless manner, because they know that, number one, they get to investigate themselves. And even in the rare instance that there's an independent investigation or it's passed up in the chain of command for investigation, rarely do they get punished. Rarely do they lose their jobs. Rarely do they end up in a prison cell. A lot of times in discussing this issue, I hear people say, well, it's a few bad apples. Not all cops are like that. Most cops are good cops. Well, I say, if most cops are good cops, it's time for those good cops to start pointing out the bad cops for the rest of us so that we can feel confident when we call 911, our families and our pets will not be the first victims of the police presence.
That's just how white folks will do you.
You gotta love random numbers. Sometimes Liebermater picks the most appropriate breaks. Folks, it's 4:20 here in the Mountain Time Zone. Mountain Time Zone. Good God, what's wrong with me? Pacific Time Zone. Sorry, I was visiting Idaho for a moment. I need something to help me deal with that. We'll be back right after this. You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on 420radio.org. The International Cannabis Business Conference is coming to the Hyatt Regency Hotel in San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, 2015. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to hear from the experts on the future of marijuana commerce, including scientists like Dr. Carl Hart, Dr. Amanda Ryman, and Dr. Stanton Peel, policy experts like Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance, Anthony Johnson from Oregon's Legalization Campaign, travel author Rick Steves from Washington's Legalization Campaign, and California legalization pioneer Dale Sky Jones. Business experts like Harborside Steve D'Angelo, ArcView Group's Troy Dayton, and UFCW union leader Dan Rush. Cannabis journalists like Ricardo Baca, Steve Bloom, and Doug Fine, and California Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, plus many, many more. Tickets are on sale now at internationalcbc.com, but hurry, last year's conference in Portland, Oregon was a sellout. International Cannabis Business Conference, San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, International CBC. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 23 and a half in the hour, and I'm back in the Pacific Time Zone. Ready for our Daily Toker Tunes for Electric Tuesday. And, of course, that means we go all the way out to Arizona. Electric Bob is waiting for us. How you doing, Bob?
How you doing, Russ? That play at the end of the Super Bowl was horrible.
It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. What are you talking about?
Yeah, why don't you just run 1 yard? I don't know. I heard a collective sigh around the neighborhood when that happened.
I'll tell you, all of us Packers fans exclaimed joy that our embarrassing loss would not be the most embarrassing loss of the playoffs.
Right.
Hey, there's this great video that's going around, too, that you ought to see. A guy set up a GoPro at his Seahawks party and faced it toward the crowd at the party. And it goes like play by play, you know, what their reactions were. And it's pretty funny because when they had that miracle catch where the guy catches off his legs right down at the 5-yard line. And from that point on, the entire crowd starts chanting beast mode, beast mode, beast mode. And they're going beast mode. And then the interception happens and it's just dead silent. They're like, what the fuck just happened? It was wonderful.
Yeah. And to touch on what you were talking about before we came to the break, it's only the cops who do something against the cops that get arrested.
Oh, that's right.
That's what I've noticed.
Oh, that's right. Like if you're that Christopher Dorner guy, that black LAPD guy that went crazy and started, trying to pick off cops, then they'll go after him.
Yeah.
God.
After all the years of trying to get someone held accountable, but that's regardless of the point. Let's talk about this song I got coming up.
Right on. Let's get to it.
Yeah, this is Sky Juice. He's a producer out of Japan, and this is a really it's one of those type of tunes that just sends you on a journey. I've been listening to it on and off all day. It's a great jungle drum and bass tune. There's really, really lush pads. There's just, I don't know, there's something about the tune that just speaks to me almost.
Cool.
It's one of those tunes that'll send you on a journey.
Right on. We'll check that out. And also, 8 o'clock tonight, we got Electric Bob's Boogaloo, our 1-hour show dedicated to electronic music. What's coming up tonight?
It's more jungle and drum and bass music. It's all 92 to 95 jungle and drum and bass.
All right, man. Set your clock for 8 p.m. Pacific time. Catch Electric Bob's Boogaloo. And if you miss it tonight, catch it next Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. For the replay. Also, we replay Electric Bob's Boogaloo on the weekends. And I believe yours comes up right after the Funky Roller Rink. So you're at, 11? Or no, I guess 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah, dance to your disco and then dance to your electronic music.
That was the idea. And then mellow out after that with some world music and really mellow out with some Viper tunes following that. All right, let's get to the tune here. It's Sky Juice with You Want to Ride. Thanks, Electric Bob. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you later, Russ.
steady, but I ain't want your 2 pounds. All I want is a bed to sleep in tonight.
Is I asking you for the 2 pounds? What kind of stupid friend is you lying with?
It's the boy who don't want to put his stick in his slime. Try, woman, put away your pokey and wait for me.
You want to ride? 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 It's nice and tight. You want to ride? You want to ride? You want to ride? You want to ride? It's nice and tight. For the quick time, 2 pounds.
I'm steady, but I ain't want your 2 pounds. All I want is a bed to sleep in tonight.
Is I asking you for the 2 pounds? What kind of stupid friend is you lying with?
It's the boy who don't want to put his stick in his slime. Try, woman, put away your pokey and wait for me.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out lushledlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
Big Daddy thinks.
Funky roller ring.
Oh yeah, this is Big Daddy, and I'll be your freakazoid every Thursday night, right here at the Funky Roller Ring.
Funky roller ring.
11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, only on RadicalRuss.com.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 36 and a half after the hour. Tonight on the NFL Network, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That means right after this show concludes, they'll be replaying Super Bowl 49. Might have to tune in just to enjoy myself again. Welcome back to the show, everyone. So glad that you could be here. You know, the Oregon legislature, boy, they are throwing everything they can at the wall and trying to see what sticks when it comes to marijuana legalization here in Oregon. They continue to dismiss the will of the people, 56% of whom have voted for marijuana legalization as it was written in Measure 91. What is so difficult for these guys to understand about implementing the will of the people? Now, if we were talking about a brand new regulation written by the people to legalize something that never been legalized before, something that was of grave danger to the public if mishandled. You know, like, I don't know, plutonium, rocket launchers, whatever. If it were something like that, then I could understand the apprehension of moving forward with the initiative as written. Because, yes, perhaps the people don't know what they're doing in that circumstance. But we are talking about the state of Oregon, folks. We're talking about a state where 1 out of 7 adults consumes cannabis on a regular basis. We're talking about a state that was the first to decriminalize marijuana in 1973. And then 24 years later, when the legislature thought they knew better and recriminalized marijuana, the people came back a year later and overturned that recriminalization by a 2-to-1 margin. In the same year, they approved of medical marijuana by a 54% margin. In 2012, they rejected legalization that was poorly written. And in 2014, they accepted legalization that was well crafted. Not only did they accepted it with the highest level of support of any of the 4 states that have legalized marijuana. So, to my mind, the electorate in the state of Oregon is one of the better informed electorates when it comes to marijuana reform issues. They seem to understand quite well what they want in marijuana legalization, and what was proposed is to treat marijuana like alcohol. In fact, it was so blatant that we wanted to treat marijuana like alcohol, we plagiarized the alcohol rules when it came to marijuana. Do you know how much the local tax in Portland is for a beer? You know what the local tax in McMinnville is for wine? You know what the local tax is in Medford for a shot of whiskey? It's 0. Because it doesn't exist. Because the state law was written that only the state has the sole power to tax alcohol. And that's what we wrote in Measure 91. Only the state has the sole power to tax marijuana. In another portion of the initiative, it says all contradictory local, municipal, county measures, anything local that contradicts with the way Measure 91 is written, shall be repealed. So not only did we vote that the state has the sole taxation authority over marijuana, we also voted that any city or county that thought otherwise and tried to preemptively pass a local tax should be repealed. So twice, 2 different portions of this law that was supported by 115,778 more voters than voted for the governor. This law that received more votes than any statewide elected official was clear that the state has the sole taxation authority, was clear that marijuana should be treated like alcohol. Another thing they want to try to do, they want to give the city council the right to ban marijuana businesses. They don't like that Measure 91 says that the only way you can have what are we going to call dry cities and dry counties? You know, they have dry and wet when it comes to alcohol. What are we going to call it for marijuana? Herbal and non-herbal? I don't know. But anyway, if you want your city to be non-herbal, you can vote for that. You can put together an initiative, put it on the ballot, have the people vote for it, and ban marijuana in your city. Not the possession, that's a right. But you can ban the commerce. Just like you can for alcohol. Now, currently, as far as I'm aware, no city or county in Oregon bans alcohol commerce. But they have the local right to do so because that's the way our alcohol laws are written. And that's exactly how we wrote the marijuana law. If a city or county really thinks their people don't want marijuana commerce, then why should they fear putting that up for a vote of the people? You know why? It's because those city council members and those county commissioners don't trust the will of their people, even at the local level. They want to unilaterally, with the vote of a tiny few, like some of these councils are 5 people. They want to be able to say that 3 people in a city or a county can decide for all the people in that city or county whether or not there should be marijuana businesses. And once again, this was something that Measure 91 was very clear about. And the people supported it. They want to attack the limits that are proposed. Some are too concerned that, oh my gosh, you're going to have 8 ounces of marijuana at home? Oh my gosh, that's a half pound of marijuana. Oh dear. That'll lead to rampant black market distribution. Are you freaking serious? You know what's going to lead to rampant black market distribution? In establishing local taxes in 70 or more cities in Oregon. You put a 10% tax on marijuana in Portland, you know what that's going to do? That's going to make me take my marijuana purchases to some suburb that doesn't tax marijuana at 10%. And I'm not going to make my weekly small purchases. I'm going to save my money up and go to the non-taxed place and make a big purchase. Hell, the entire state of Oregon, and most particularly Portland, uses that as a marketing technique to get shoppers from Washington to buy cars and TVs and appliances and what have you, because we have no sales tax. You'd think a state that clings to being one of the few with no sales tax, that markets its lack of sales tax as a shopping incentive, would understand that putting a local tax on marijuana creates a shopping incentive for the places that don't have the local tax. And what if all the suburbs around Portland also have local taxes? Well, that means the guy that's growing 4 plants at his house and has 8 ounces on hand has a much better chance of selling some of that excess to the people who don't have access at a store. Now, if I could go to a pot store, I'm not buying weed from Joe down the street. Yeah, Joe might be my friend. Joe's a nice guy. Joe's a good grower. Joe grows good plants. But I got to wait for Joe's harvest. I got to be able to get a hold of Joe. You know, it's kind of a pain in the ass. I don't know if he's got mold or mildew. Who knows? It's not been tested. I don't know what the potency is. I'm stuck with whatever strain he decides to grow. I'd much rather shop at the shop. I'd much rather go to the shop where there's 24 to 36 different strains to pick from, and I know it's been tested. It's all packaged nice. But if you don't give me that option, you don't give me the store to go to, I'm going to visit Joe. Or worse, from their perspective, as these authorities seem to think the medical marijuana law is rampantly abused, the worst scenario is that by locking down that 10% tax on the recreational stores, but lacking it at the medical stores, if you have the localities banning the pot shops but unable to ban the medical stores as well, you're creating incredible perverse incentive for people to want to cheat and get into the medical marijuana system, to have the access, to have the selection, and to avoid the taxes. It's just frustrating from my point of view because I'm sympathetic to what these people want. I'm sympathetic to their goals. And it's just frustrating that they don't understand that their own tactics thwart their own goals. They're all freaked out about the possibility of marijuana diversion in black markets, and yet they propose situations, they propose regulations, they propose scenarios that virtually guarantee an increase in the black market. The people who wrote Measure 91 aren't dummies. They looked to Vancouver, Washington, and they heard the local stories of pot dealers having to be shooed out of the parking lots of the legal pot stores because it's so easy for them to sit there and poach customers when they don't have to pay a 25% tax plus a 25% tax plus a 25% tax plus a 9% state tax plus a local tax. That's what we don't want in Oregon. We learned the lessons from Seattle. And these legislators also want to ban edibles, or at least anything that might appeal to the children. As if adults don't like things that look nice and taste good. As if edibles should just be, some beige colored discs with no taste to them or something. They want to ban these edibles. So let me get this straight. You want to allow people to possess marijuana, allow people to buy marijuana, but they're not allowed to smoke it anywhere. They can't smoke it in their hotel room, can't smoke it in the street, can't smoke it in the park, can't go to a bar and smoke it on the smoking patio. No place for public consumption. And we're also going to get rid of the option for using a non-smokable form of marijuana as well. But you can possess all the marijuana you like. You can possess your ounce of marijuana. You just can't use it anywhere. This is just insane. Let this thing get implemented as it was written. And then let's react to see what problems there might be. It's not as if people are going to die if we do this the wrong way. It's marijuana.
Continue the conversation with Radical Russ online. Visit radicalruss.com and email radicalruss@gmail.com.
Science! Oh, we love science here at the Russ Belville Show, and sometimes it gets us in trouble. Been going rounds lately on Facebook with the anti-vax crowd. The anti-vaccine people. Folks, just because government has done nasty shit and science has ignored the potential of cannabis doesn't mean that they always do. Just because they fucked with us with respect to weed does not mean they're fucking with us with respect to vaccines. It's just weird that just because I support legalization, somehow I should also be anti-vaccine. Sorry, folks. I believe in science!
420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio. Are you in the market for portable vaporizers now? Get online to vapes.buzz, the quick and easy link to portablevaporizers.now.com. Vapes.buzz has everything you're looking for, including vape pens, herbal vaporizers, e-juice, parts, accessories, and more. Visit vapes.buzz and save 5% instantly, or give them a call at 866-264-2415. Vapes.buzz. Get vaping, baby! Tokers, there's no good reason to get your dog stoned. While it might not harm them physically, imagine being a dog who already begs for treats all day, and then imagine that dog having the munchies. Not cool. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 52 after the hour. Oh, I've opened a can of worms on this one. Look, folks, the science is pretty clear. In 2000, we had eradicated measles. No reputable scientist believed that we were in danger of measles. This year, 150 cases so far of measles. Last 4 years, incredible rise in the number of measles cases out there. Somehow corresponding with the now debunked report that got the anti-vax crowd all started, and amplified by a Playmate of the Year. Sorry, folks, I'm all about science. Now, I get all the people that say, but, some kids can have a seizure if they get a vaccine. Yes, it's somewhere in the range of like 4.2 to 6.5 kids per 10,000 might have that problem. Meanwhile, kids that get measles, about 1 or 2 per 100 die. And this isn't a case of just a personal freedom thing. What really gets me upset about this discussion is when people try to drag me into it because I'm a marijuana reformer. One of the things is, well, you've read into all the nasty shit the government did with marijuana. You read all the science that they suppressed with marijuana. Why wouldn't they do the same with vaccines? See, folks, there's a difference, though. There's quite a difference. And that is, we can see the eradication of diseases. We can show charts that show in the 50s and 60s, look how much measles, rubella, mumps, diphtheria, polio, pertussis that we had in this country. And then after we started vaccinating people, whoosh, they go away. Not just a decline, but eradication of these diseases. Folks, the vaccine thing at this point is in the same level of scientific agreement as human involvement in climate change. Now, can you find anti-vax websites with all sorts of pseudoscience gobbledygook claiming this or that can happen, this terrible thing or that terrible thing can happen? Sure, you can find that. Just like you can find the climate denier websites with scientist X, 1 out of 30,000, who thinks that there's no problem with our climate. But when it comes to the science, I trust the scientists. I trust the World Health Organization. I trust the Centers for Disease Control on this. Now, I also get the people that get that conspiratorial thinking. Well, you know, it's a big conspiracy to make profits for the pharmaceutical companies by, having these mandatory vaccinations. They can make big money. Well, there might be some money to be made. The real money's in Lipitor and Viagra, but still, there might be some money to be made. But just because there's profit involved does not necessarily mean that it's skullduggery that's involved as well. There are lots of drugs out there that are beneficial and very profitable. Antibiotics, cannabis, Viagra, Lipitor, all sorts of things. And I worry about this because there's this tendency, and it's a decreasing tendency. Before I get to this, though, the other thing, too, is I get this thing, well, they repressed the science on cannabis. They repressed the science on cannabis, but not really. There are 20,000 published studies on PubMed on the validity of cannabis and its safety and its efficacy. The government repressed that information, but not the scientists. Among the scientists, there's been for a long time now clear and overwhelming consensus among the scientists that cannabis is not the demon drug that its opponents make it out to be. It's not just we have a few tiny fringe of scientists who are telling us that cannabis is medicine, and the overwhelming consensus of medical opinion says it's not. It's just the opposite. The overwhelming consensus of medical opinion says cannabis is medicine, and there's a few kooks on the fringe who say it's not. Just like the overwhelming consensus of scientific opinion now is on the safety and efficacy and need for vaccination, and there's a few fringe kooks on the outside that say it's not. Now, another way I get pummeled on this is people say I'm anti-freedom. You're anti-freedom! You're anti-freedom! You want to stick needles in people's arms. You want to drug people's kids without their permission. No, I'm actually a big advocate for freedom. But see, folks, I have a special perspective on this. My wife survived a childhood in a Christian cult. And I literally mean survived. If you were watching Anderson Cooper 360 it was about last week or 2 weeks ago, they did a feature on a church in Idaho called the Church of Christ that they don't believe in doctors or medicine. So they don't allow their kids to go see doctors or have any medicine or surgery or anything like that. And then they showed the graveyard where there's infants and 2-year-olds and 9-year-olds and teenagers buried by the dozens from the various families that are a part of this Christian cult because they never had basic medical care. That's my wife's family. She knows some of those kids under those tombstones. Her great-grandfather founded the cult. My wife literally survived her childhood. She's had rubella and pertussis and measles and survived it. She could have very well died. She had a severe accident as an 11-year-old that left her with severe facial deformity that desperately needed plastic reconstructive surgery. Never saw a doctor. Never got a painkiller. Lived with that until she turned 18 and was able to get the hell away from that cult. So I might be a little sensitive to this idea of not vaccinating kids. Now, if you don't want to vaccinate your kids, that's great. But you don't get to send them to the public school with the rest of our kids to get them infected. You don't get to bring them to the daycares and get our kids infected. Go ahead and set up your anti-vax colony. Go buy yourself an island somewhere. Wall off Utah for all I care. Take your anti-vax and your climate denial people with you. And we'll just see how long the colony survives before it's wiped out by pertussis, rubella, measles, and so on. Folks, that's all the time I got for today. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.